The Young and the Restless spoilers. Saturday's full episodes. July 19, 2025. The mansion's marble corridors echoed not only with whispers of suspicion but now with the unmistakable rustle of alliances fracturing and loyalties shifting. What began as a single violent act had now morphed into a psychological labyrinth, one in which every step Cain took only seemed to lead him deeper into uncertainty and, more damningly, isolation. Amanda, the one person in the legal world who had once believed in the sanctity of due process, now stared at him with a cold distance that chilled far more than any accusation could. In the dim light of the lounge, with the scent of lingering wine and polished oak filling the silence between them, Cain asked the question he dreaded most, not to the police, not to chance, but to the woman tasked with defending his name in court and in the public eye. "Do you really think I killed Damien Cain?" The pause that followed cut deeper than the question itself. Amanda didn't need to raise her voice. Her words, deliberate and devastating, were heavy with professional detachment. "In my experience," she said flatly, "you would do whatever it takes to eliminate a rival." "Am I wrong?" Cain's jaw tensed. The room, once filled with confident charm and social posturing, now felt like a cage. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. But Amanda wasn't joking. Her tone didn't waver. "I have serious doubts about your innocence," she said. "But that won't stop me from doing my job. My role is to ensure no one can prove that you killed him. That's what I'll do." For a man already fraying at the edges, it was a near-fatal blow. And if Cain thought he had plumbed the depths of distrust, he hadn't yet reckoned with what Nick Newman had uncovered, or what he was preparing to unleash. Word traveled fast in Genoa City, and even faster when it came with sharp accusations and hard evidence. Nick had been seething beneath the surface since Damien's murder, not just because of the crime itself but because of what had followed, the calculated silence, the spreading doubt, and the way the noose seemed to tighten more around his own neck than Cain's. But now, things had changed. A discovery had shifted the balance. The weapon. The dagger. Found not in the cellar, nor the garden, nor in Cain's office, but inside Nick's own bathroom, buried beneath a rolled towel at the back of a cabinet no one ever used. It hadn't been there the day before. But it was there now, its edge darkened with blood, its hilt wrapped in a single black thread. Nick's face had gone pale when he saw it. His first instinct had not been to scream or panic. It had been to act. And like any man desperate to prove he wasn't being set up, he carried it straight to chance. And when Phyllis asked the inevitable question, "Do you really think someone's trying to frame you?" Nick's response was swift and venomous. "Yes," he said. "And I think we all know who." That name, unspoken but unmistakable, echoed through the halls, Cain. But not everyone was convinced. Chance, for all his tenacity and training, remained methodical. He refused to leap. Phyllis, though visibly disturbed, wavered between two conflicting truths, her instinct that Cain was capable of manipulation, and her long-standing doubt that he would ever risk a game this dangerous. "I'm with you," she told Nick quietly. "But I'm not sure Cain would go this far." Nick didn't flinch. He stared her down. "Chelsea saw him," he snapped. "In Genoa City. When this whole mess started. He's been moving the pieces long before any of us realized we were even on the board. He wanted us all here, trapped. So his little game could play out." Elsewhere in the estate, Nikki Newman clutched her robe tighter around her shoulders as she stepped into Victor's study, her face pale and eyes wide with the kind of fear that had little to do with logic and everything to do with premonition. "I had a dream," she confessed. "A terrible dream." Victor, always here is the next fully developed continuation of the Young and the Restless narrative, based on the new plot developments. This section further tightens the emotional noose, expands Victor and Nikki's involvement, escalates Nick's rage, and sets the stage for an uneasy alliance between Phyllis, Cain, and Amanda. The structure remains immersive, dramatic, and written in long, flowing paragraphs with strong internal logic and continuity. Even as the fragile quiet of the French estate unraveled beneath layers of paranoia and grief, somewhere deeper, the story was already beginning to metastasize, its roots threading into every family, every power dynamic, and every fractured alliance within the Newman empire. And it was Phyllis, as always, who sensed the pressure building before anyone else, her instincts honed from decades of surviving in the gray spaces between truth and manipulation. When she stepped between Amanda and Cain, her voice was deceptively calm, laced with a deliberate edge as she addressed them both. "I told them," she began, "that Cain couldn't have thrown the dagger. Because I was with him." Amanda blinked, her trained detachment momentarily interrupted. Cain straightened, both surprised and vaguely relieved, his lips twitching with the hint of a smirk. "I appreciate you confirming my story," he said, still wary of how fragile any alliance might be in a place where even the wine carried poison. But Phyllis wasn't there for affirmation. Her gaze sharpened. "This can't be left to the police alone," she said. "We know Chance is thorough, but he doesn't understand the personal politics at play here. We do. So let's investigate it ourselves." And just like that, a dangerous pact was born. 3 people, each with their own suspicions, choosing to unravel a murder they might already be buried in. But far from the estate's dark corridors, across the scenic French countryside where vineyards whispered in the wind and rail lines carved through rolling hills, Victor Newman sat in quiet stillness aboard a private train car. The silver-edged crossword puzzle in his lap was nearly complete, his mind resting between strategy and nostalgia. The rhythmic clatter of the train was almost hypnotic, until it was broken by the sharp, breathless gasp of his wife. Nikki bolted upright in the bed across from him, her hand clenching the sheets, her eyes wide with something deeper than fear. "Victor," she whispered hoarsely, "I just had a terrible dream." He looked up, eyebrow raised, but she wasn't finished. "It was about our children. Something horrible is coming. I could see blood and Cain." Victor closed his crossword gently and rose. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've been under stress," he said quietly. "This kind of thing, it gets into your head. It's not unusual." But her trembling didn't stop, and neither did the dread in his chest. "Victor," she said again, her voice now taut with conviction, "I saw Nick." Victor's gaze darkened. He had built empires on strategy, survived decades of betrayal and power plays. But he knew, even if he didn't believe in omens, that Nikki's instincts were rarely wrong. Still, his voice was cold when he finally spoke again. "If Cain thinks he can lay a hand on my family, if he thinks my children, or my business, are fair game, he doesn't understand that he's walking into a nightmare of his own making. I'll be the last thing he ever sees." And at that moment, a knock came at the door. Nick stood in the hallway, jaw clenched, eyes bloodshot, not from tears but from exhaustion and fury. He looked past the security detail and straight at his parents. "I'm glad you're both okay," he said. Victor narrowed his gaze. "Why wouldn't we be?" Nick stepped into the room without asking. "Because Cain made his next move. And it's a bloody one." He didn't sit. He didn't wait for permission to continue. "Damien's dead. Here is the next immersive, dramatic continuation of You're the Young and the Restless storyline." This section focuses on Lily's emotional collapse and growing conviction that Cain is guilty, her tense conversation with Chance, and an explosive confrontation between Nick and Cain in the maze. The narrative remains written in flowing, detailed paragraphs as requested, fully coherent with the events so far. The train rolled gently through the French countryside, its rhythmic motion in stark contrast to the turbulence twisting inside Lily. She sat alone in her cabin, curtains drawn tight, light dim, the world outside reduced to a blur of green and gray. A silence that would have once soothed her now pressed on her chest like stone. She couldn't stop the images, Damien's voice, his hands, his laughter, the way he had looked at her like she was the only anchor he had left in this world. She curled beneath the linen sheets and whispered into the void, "Damien. I'm sorry. Tears spilled before she even knew they were coming. Her body trembled, and her voice cracked beneath the weight of too many memories. The pain had crept in slowly at first, but now it was unbearable, because she wasn't just grieving a lover. She was grieving something pure, something brief but real, cut down in its prime by a blade meant for vengeance, or worse, by the hand of a man she once trusted with everything. As if echoing her anguish, the screenwriters seemed content to let time stretch and twist, playing back scene after scene of her with new Cain, those moments of fragile hope, unresolved history, and soft forgiveness, all of it now tainted by blood and betrayal. A knock pulled her from the spiral. She wiped her face quickly, pulled the door open, and saw Chance standing there, his eyes searching hers not as a detective, but as a friend. "Do you want to talk?" he asked gently. Lily didn't speak at first. She stepped aside, letting him in, and finally murmured, "You'd better believe him." The words were clipped, heavy. Not a plea for understanding, more a command born from exhaustion. Together, they made their way to the drink cart in the center of the cabin. Steam rose from Chance's coffee as he turned toward her. "Tell me what happened," he said quietly. "From the moment you and Damien arrived." Lily inhaled sharply, then exhaled with resolve. "It's a waste of time," she said flatly. "There's only one person here who had a real motive to kill Damien. And that's Cain." Her voice didn't shake. "Not this time." She stared straight ahead, eyes narrowed with clarity born from pain. "The last time I saw Damien, we told Cain we were together. We decided to stop hiding it. I thought it was the right time." Chance leaned in, listening without judgment. "Did Cain react poorly?" Lily laughed bitterly. "Cain has always been complicated." But no, he didn't yell or rage. Not then. But something in his eyes changed. It wasn't disappointment. It was possession. Like he couldn't process the idea of me with anyone else. Chance studied her face. Was he ever possessive before? Or violent? She hesitated, because the truth was complex. "Not with me. Not during our time together. But he's not the same man anymore, Chance. He's changed. I don't know what he's capable of now. And that's what terrifies me." The questions grew sharper. "Do you think he wanted to be with you again?" Chance asked. Lily nodded. "I told him it would never happen. I told him I'd moved on. That Damien made me feel safe. Seen. That was the last thing I said to him." Her voice trembled now. "And I swear to you, Chance, I saw it in his face. If he couldn't have me, no one could." Her conviction hung heavy in the air. "You think Cain killed Damien out of jealousy?" Chance pressed. Lily didn't flinch. "Yes," she said. "I think it's obvious. I think he poisoned us, waited until we were weak, and then struck when Damien was alone. I think he wanted to make me suffer, and I think he's trying to pin it all on Nick. Cain's calculating. He knows how to spin things. But someone has to stop him." Her eyes welled again, but this time with fury. "He killed Damien. And someone needs to make sure he pays." But while Lily cried for justice, someone else had decided justice wouldn't wait. Back at the estate, dusk had settled like a bruise over the stone walls. The maze, once a playful attraction for bored guests, now felt like something far more sinister, a place to lose your direction, your breath, even your life. Cain had wandered in, desperate to clear his thoughts, to escape the scrutiny. But